The galaxy had always looked down on humans. They were too soft, too small, too weak. That was what every species believed. From the tall traders to the scaled diplomats, everyone agreed on one thing: humans did not belong among the stars. The Galactic Council had allowed Earth to join the interstellar community only 50 years ago. In that time, humans had proven useful for simple tasks. They could farm, they could build, they could serve, but they could never fight, they could never lead, they could never matter. This was the truth that every young alien learned. Humans were fragile creatures from a small blue world. Their bodies broke easily. Their lives were short. Their strength was nothing compared to the great warrior races. And the greatest warrior race of all was the stood nearly 3 meters tall. Their skin was like gray stone, hard and thick. Their eyes burned red like dying stars. They had 4 arms, each one strong enough to crush metal. For 10,000 years they had been the supreme warriors of the galaxy. No army could defeat them. No weapon could stop them. When they went to war, planets fell. But they were not cruel. They followed an ancient code of honor. They fought only worthy enemies. They protected the weak when it served justice. They valued strength above all else, but they also valued truth, loyalty, and courage. At the head of the stood one warrior above all others. His name was. He was the supreme warrior, the champion of 10,000 battles, the unbroken shield. For 300 years had fought across the galaxy. He had never lost. He had never retreated. He had never shown fear. Every species knew his name. Every military commander studied his tactics. Every young warrior dreamed of earning even a small portion of his glory. Was a living legend. On this day stood in the war chamber of his ship, the Iron Judgment. His 4 arms were crossed over his massive chest. His red eyes stared at the holographic map floating before him. "The Void Swarm has taken another colony," said his second-in-command, a female named. 17,000 dead, no survivors. Said nothing. The Void Swarm was a new threat to the galaxy. They were creatures of darkness and hunger. They came from the space between stars and they consumed everything they touched. For 2 years they had been attacking the outer colonies. The Galactic Council had tried to fight them with normal armies. Every time they failed. Now the Council had asked them for help. They had asked to save them. "There is more," continued. "The Council is sending support ships, medical vessels, supply carriers." "From which species?" asked. His voice was deep like thunder. Paused, her jaw tightened. "Humans." Turned slowly to look at her. "Humans." "The Council believes they can help with the wounded. Human doctors have some skill in medicine, and they were the only species willing to send ships into the danger zone." Made a sound of disgust. "Soft creatures playing at war, they will only get in the way." "I agree, Supreme Warrior, but the Council has insisted. We cannot refuse." Turned back to the map. He did not like this. Humans on a battlefield were a weakness. They could not defend themselves. His warriors would have to protect them while fighting the Void Swarm. It was an insult to the mission. But orders were orders. Even the Supreme Warrior had to follow the Council's commands in times of galactic crisis. "Very well," said, "but keep them away from the fighting, far away." 3 days later, the human ships arrived. There were 5 of them, small medical vessels painted white with red crosses on their hulls. They looked like toys next to the massive warships. Watched them approach on the viewing screen. He felt only disappointment. These were the beings the Council had sent to help, these fragile creatures in their fragile ships. "The human commander wishes to speak with you," said. "I have no time for this." "He says it is important. He wants to coordinate medical stations on the ground." Growled but accepted the communication. A moment later, a human face appeared on the screen. The creature was small, with pale skin and dark hair cut short. His eyes were blue like Earth's oceans. He wore a simple gray uniform with a medical symbol on the shoulder. "Supreme Warrior," the human said. His voice was calm and steady. "I am Captain Cole, commander of the medical fleet. Thank you for allowing us to assist your mission." "Your assistance is not wanted," said bluntly. "Stay out of the way. Do not interfere with my warriors. If you slow us down, I will leave you behind." The human did not flinch. He did not look afraid. He simply nodded. "Understood, Supreme Warrior. We will not slow you down, but I would ask permission to place medical tents near the battlefield. Many of your warriors may be wounded. We can help them." "Do not need human help." "Everyone needs help sometimes," said quietly. Stared at the small creature on the screen. There was something in his eyes, something that did not match his weak body but dismissed it. All humans were the same, weak, soft, useless. "Do what you want," said, "but if your people die, it is not my concern." He ended the communication. The battle began 2 days later on a planet called Seven. The Void Swarm had taken the colony there. 30,000 civilians were trapped underground, hiding from the monsters above. His mission was simple: land, kill the swarm, save the survivors. The warriors dropped from the sky in their drop pods. They hit the ground like meteors. Within seconds, they were fighting. The Void Swarm came at them in waves, dark shapes with too many legs and teeth like black glass. They screamed as they attacked, a sound that drove lesser species mad. But there were not lesser species. They fought with plasma blades and crushing fists. They cut through the swarm like fire through paper, led from the front as he always did. His blades sang through the air. Bodies fell around him. Behind the lines, the human medical ships landed. White tents rose on the gray ground. Human doctors in protective suits prepared their equipment. They watched the battle from a distance, waiting. Cole stood at the entrance of the main medical tent. He watched the fight. They were magnificent, powerful beyond belief, but he noticed something else. Some of the warriors were falling. The Void Swarm had poison in their claws. Even skin could not stop it completely. "Prepare for wounded," told his team. "It won't be long now." The first warrior was carried in an hour later. He was massive, nearly crushing the human stretcher. Black poison spread through his veins. His 4 arms trembled. His red eyes were growing dim. "Human," the warrior growled, "let me die with honor. Do not touch me with your weak hands." Ignored him. He had heard worse from patients before. He pulled on his gloves and got to work. The warrior would live, whether he liked it or not. The battle on Seven lasted for 3 days. The Void Swarm was endless. Every time they killed 100, 1,000 more appeared. The warriors fought without rest. They did not complain. They did not stop. But even the strongest bodies have limits. On the second day, the wounded started coming faster. Warriors, proud and fierce, were carried into the human medical tents with poison in their blood and holes in their stone-like skin. Many of them refused treatment at first. They cursed at the human doctors. They demanded to return to battle. And his team ignored the protests. They had a job to do. Human medicine was different from other species. It was creative. It was adaptable. Where other races used standard treatments, humans experimented. They combined techniques. They found new solutions. The Void Swarm poison was supposed to be deadly. No known cure existed, but had spent the past 2 years studying it. He had developed a treatment using modified human antibodies. It was not perfect, but it worked. One by one, the warriors recovered. They watched with surprise as human hands healed their wounds. These soft creatures, these weak beings, were saving their lives. It did not make sense. Second in command was wounded on the second night. A swarm creature had caught her from behind. Its poison claw had gone deep into her back. She collapsed in the mud, her red eyes flickering. Her warriors carried her to the medical tent, was waiting. "The Supreme Warrior's second," one of the warriors said. "Save her, human, or face his wrath." Did not respond to the threat. He simply began working, was in bad condition. The poison had spread far. Her hearts, had 3 of them, were struggling. For 6 hours worked. He did not eat. He did not rest. His hands moved with precision and care. He talked to even though she was unconscious. "You're going to be fine," he said softly. "I've seen worse." "Well, maybe not worse, but close. Just keep fighting. That's what you do, right? Fight." Near dawn's eyes opened. She looked up at the human standing over her. His face was tired. His uniform was covered in her black blood, but he was smiling. "You are alive," said. "Welcome back." Tried to speak. Her voice was weak. "You saved me." "That's my job." "Why, you owe us nothing. Your people and mine are not allies. We look down on you. We always have." Was quiet for a moment, then he shrugged. "Everyone deserves a chance to live, even people who look down on me. Besides, you're fighting to save 30,000 civilians. That makes you one of the good ones in my book." Stared at him. She had fought beside warriors from a dozen species. She had seen courage and honor in many forms, but she had never seen it in a human before. "What is your name?" she asked. "Cole." "I will remember it." News of survival reached on the battlefield. He had been fighting for 2 days straight. His blade was black with swarm blood. His arms ached. But he did not stop. He could not stop. The civilians needed him. "The human doctor saved her?" asked between strikes. "Yes, Supreme Warrior," his aide reported. "He worked through the night. He is saving many of our wounded." Cut down another swarm creature. He did not respond, but somewhere in his mind a small thought formed. Perhaps he had judged the humans too quickly. On the 3rd day, the battle reached its peak. The had pushed deep into swarm territory. They were close to the underground bunkers where the civilians hid, but the swarm was gathering for a final attack. Thousands of creatures massed in the distance. Their screams filled the air. Stood at the front of his army. His warriors were exhausted, many were wounded, but they stood ready. This was what they were born for. "Today we finish this," shouted. "For honor, for glory, for the fallen." They roared in response. They charged forward to meet the swarm. The battle was terrible. Even who had seen 10,000 fights was pushed to his limits. The swarm creatures climbed over each other to reach him. He cut them down by the dozens, but more kept coming. His arms burned. His breath grew heavy. Then he heard something behind him, a sound that did not belong. He turned and saw a small white vehicle racing across the battlefield. It was a human medical transport. "Fools," growled, "they will die." But the transport did not stop. It drove straight toward a group of fallen warriors at the edge of the fight. The vehicle's door opened and Cole jumped out. He was not wearing armor. He carried only a medical bag. Swarm creatures turned toward him, easy prey, a soft human with no weapons. Ignored them. He ran to the first fallen warrior and started treatment. Humans shouted, "Get back." Did not listen. A swarm creature lunged at him. Without looking, pulled a small device from his belt and fired. The creature fell, twitching. He kept working on the warrior. Felt something he had not felt in a very long time: surprise. He watched as moved from warrior to warrior. The human was fast, efficient. Swarm creatures attacked him again and again. Each time he dodged or shot them with his small pistol. He never stopped treating the wounded. "That human has no sense," said. She had returned to the battle despite her injuries. "He will die." "Perhaps," said, but he was not so sure. A larger swarm creature appeared. It was twice the size of the others, with claws like curved swords. It moved toward with terrible speed. Saw it coming. He did not have time to dodge. He raised his pistol, but the weapon clicked empty. The creature swung its claw. Moved without thinking. He crossed the distance in 3 bounds. His blade came up and caught the creature's claw just before it hit. The impact sent sparks flying. "Behind me," ordered. Nodded and ducked. Killed the creature with 2 quick strikes, then another, then another. He stood over the human, his 4 arms working constantly. "You should not be here," said between attacks. "Your warriors were dying," replied. He was already treating another wounded behind's protection. "I couldn't let that happen." "You risked your life for—" "I risked my life for people who needed help. Their species doesn't matter." "Killed another creature." He glanced back at the human. His hands were steady. His face was calm. He showed no fear, even with death all around him. "You are strange for a human," said. "I get that a lot." The battle lasted another hour. When it was done, the swarm was defeated. The civilians were saved. They had won. But the victory had cost them. 40 warriors had fallen. Another 100 were wounded. Without the human medical team, the numbers would have been far worse. That night walked through the medical camp. He saw his warriors lying on human stretchers, being treated by human doctors. They no longer cursed or complained. They simply accepted the help. He found in the main tent. The human was still working, even though he had not slept in 3 days. His eyes were red with exhaustion. His hands were covered in blood, both red and black. "You should rest," said. Looked up, he seemed surprised to see the supreme warrior there. "So should you," replied, "but we both have work to do." Watched him for a long moment. "You saved 17 of my warriors today. You ran into battle without armor, without real weapons. You could have died." "But I didn't." "Why did you do it?" Stopped working. He met's red eyes without flinching. "Because they were hurt and I could help. That's all there is to it. I'm a doctor. It's what I do." Did not understand. This human was weak. His body could not fight. His life was short. He had nothing to gain by risking himself. And yet he did it anyway. "You are not like other humans," said. "I'm exactly like other humans," replied. "You just haven't been paying attention." The victory at 7 brought a brief moment of peace. The fleet returned to the staging area near the core worlds. The wounded were transferred to proper medical stations. Reports were sent to the Galactic Council. But the war was not over. The Void Swarm had been defeated in one battle, but they were still spreading across the outer territories. More colonies were falling. More civilians were dying. The galaxy needed a solution. Stood before the council 2 weeks after the battle. The massive chamber held representatives from every major species, traders in their golden robes, diplomats with their scaled faces, scholars floating in their water tanks, and humans, of course. A small group of human ambassadors sat in the back of the chamber. They were always in the back. "Supreme Warrior," the council head said. He was an ancient named. "Your victory at 7 was impressive, but we must discuss the larger strategy. The Void Swarm grows stronger every day." "I am aware," said. His voice filled the chamber. "We need more ships, more warriors, and we need better intelligence on the swarm's movements." "The council will provide what it can," said, "but resources are limited. Many species are unwilling to commit their forces to this war." A diplomat stood. His name was, and he was known for his harsh views on military matters. "Perhaps we should discuss the real problem," said. "They are losing too many warriors. Your methods are effective but costly. Maybe it is time to consider other approaches." His red eyes narrowed. "Are you questioning my tactics?" "I am questioning the wisdom of sending the galaxy's best warriors to die in every battle. Perhaps we should use more disposable forces." The chamber went quiet. Everyone knew what meant. He glanced toward the human ambassadors. "The humans breed quickly," continued. "They are numerous. They could serve as ground troops while the focus on more important targets." One of the human ambassadors stood. She was a woman named Director, the head of Earth's diplomatic mission. "Are you suggesting we use human soldiers as fodder?" she asked. Her voice was calm but cold. "I am suggesting that every species contribute according to its abilities," replied. "Humans cannot fight but they can take hits. They can absorb casualties. It is simple mathematics." felt something stir in his chest. He thought of Cole running across the battlefield. He thought of the human doctors saving lives. He thought of the courage he had witnessed. "That is enough," said. The chamber fell silent. When the Supreme Warrior spoke, everyone listened. "I will not use human lives as shields," continued. "They have shown their value in this war. Their doctors saved many of my warriors at 7. They risked their own lives to do so." Made a dismissive sound. "Doctors are not warriors, Supreme Warrior. Humans are still weak. They cannot stand in true battle." "I have seen more courage in one human than in 10 diplomats," replied. The chamber erupted, shouted something about insults. Other delegates began arguing. The council head tried to restore order. Did not care. He turned and walked out of the chamber. He had heard enough. Later that day, he received a message from Director. She requested a private meeting. Agreed. They met on the observation deck of his ship. The stars stretched out before them, cold and distant. "Thank you for what you said," began. "No one has ever defended humans like that before." "I spoke the truth," said, "nothing more." "Still, it was unexpected. They have never shown any interest in humans. We are too weak for you." Was quiet for a moment. "I used to believe that. Perhaps I was wrong." Looked at him. "What changed your mind?" "One of your people, a doctor named Cole." Nodded slowly. "I know Captain Cole. He volunteered for the 7 mission. No one else would go. He ran into battle to save my warriors. He had no weapons, no armor, but he did not hesitate." "That sounds like," said. "He's always been like that. He believes that helping others is more important than protecting himself." Turned to face her. "Where is he now?" "He stayed behind at the medical station. There were still wounded to treat. He wouldn't leave until every patient was stable." Made a decision then. He did not fully understand it, but something told him it was right. "I want him assigned to my fleet permanently," said. "Him and his medical team. We will need them for the battles ahead." Looked surprised. "Supreme Warrior, that's a great honor, but why? You could request doctors from any species." "Because he earned it," said simply. 1 week later, Cole arrived on the Iron Judgment. He came with a small team of human doctors and nurses. They set up a medical bay on the ship, bringing human equipment and human methods. The warriors watched them with a mix of curiosity and confusion. Some still looked down on the humans, but others remembered 7. They remembered who had saved their lives. Met within the war room. The Supreme Warrior looked down at the small human before him. "You did not have to accept this assignment," said. "The medical station was safer." "Safe is boring," replied. "Besides, your warriors need doctors, might as well be me." "You will be in danger, every battle every day." "I know." "You do not seem worried." Shrugged. "Everyone dies eventually. I'd rather die doing something that matters." Studied the human. He had met thousands of warriors in his long life. Many of them had been brave. Many of them had been strong. But this small creature had something different, something could not name. "You puzzle me," Cole said. "Good," replied with a slight smile. "I'd hate to be predictable." The next few months were hard. The fleet moved from battle to battle, fighting the void swarm wherever they appeared. They fought with their usual ferocity, and after every battle his team treated the wounded. Slowly, things began to change. The warriors started to accept the humans among them. They shared meals together. They told stories. Some of the warriors even started learning human words just so they could thank the doctors properly. Became a familiar sight on the ship. He walked through the corridors without fear. He joked with the warriors. He listened to their problems. He treated their wounds, both physical and otherwise. One night, after a particularly brutal battle, found sitting alone in the observation deck. The human was staring out at the stars. He looked tired, sad. "You lost patients today," said. "It was not a question." 3 of them, replied. I couldn't save them. The damage was too severe. That is war. Death is inevitable. I know, but it never gets easier. Every time I lose someone, it feels like I failed. Sat down next to him. His massive frame made the human look even smaller. I have lost many warriors over the centuries, said. Every loss weighs on me, but I have learned that we cannot save everyone. We can only do our best. How do you keep going? Because stopping would mean more death. The only way to honor the fallen is to keep fighting, to keep saving those we can. Was quiet for a long moment, then he nodded. You're surprisingly wise for a warrior, he said. You are surprisingly brave for a doctor, replied. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars together, two beings from different worlds, finding common ground in the darkness. The war against the Void Swarm reached its crisis point 6 months later. The creatures had gathered in massive numbers near a system called the... They were building something there. The Council's scouts reported a structure of impossible size, some kind of gate. If that gate opens, explained to the War Council, the swarm can bring through endless reinforcements from wherever they come from. We will never stop them. Studied the holographic map. There was a dangerous place. Gravity storms, radiation fields. Any ship that entered would face terrible conditions even before fighting the swarm. We must destroy that gate, said, but it will cost us. Many warriors will not return. The Council is sending additional forces, said. Ships from even the. And the humans. They are sending their largest medical fleet, 50 ships. Nodded, he thought of, somewhere on the ship preparing for the battle ahead. The human had become important to the fleet, not just as a doctor but as something else. A symbol, a reminder that strength came in many forms. Gather the warriors, ordered. We leave tomorrow. The fleet that assembled for the Battle of was the largest in galactic history. 3,000 warships from every major species. At their head flew the Iron Judgment, with on the bridge. Stood in the medical bay, checking supplies one final time. His team was ready. 50 human medical ships floated among the warships. They were small and fragile compared to the giants around them, but they were there. His voice came over the ship's speakers. He was addressing the entire fleet. Warriors of the galaxy, began. Today we face our greatest challenge. The Void Swarm thinks they can destroy us. They think we are weak. They think we are afraid. They are wrong. Pause to listen. We come from different worlds, continued. We speak different languages. We have different bodies, different cultures, different beliefs. But today we are one. Today we fight as brothers and sisters. Today, we show the Void that the galaxy will not fall. The fleet cheered. Even the humans raised their voices. For those who will fall today, said, his voice growing soft, know that you will be remembered. Your sacrifice has meaning. Your courage has value. And for those who save lives instead of taking them, you are just as much heroes as any warrior. Maybe more. Felt something warm in his chest. He knew those words were meant for him and his team. The battle began an hour later. It was chaos. The Void Swarm came at the fleet in numbers that understanding. Millions of creatures flew through space, attacking ships with their bodies. The darkness was filled with fire and death. The led the charge, as always, was at the front, his personal fighter cutting through swarm formations. Behind him, the combined fleet fought with everything they had. But the swarm was strong. Ships began to fall. Warriors began to die. The medical ships worked constantly, racing between battles to pick up survivors and treat the wounded. Was on one of those ships. He had left the Iron Judgment to help where he was needed most. His transport flew into the heart of the battle, dodging debris and swarm creatures. There, he shouted to the pilot. That cruiser is venting atmosphere, survivors on the hull. The transport changed course. They reached the cruiser and opened the doors. Warriors in damaged suits floated toward them, pulled them in one by one. Thank you, human, one of the warriors gasped. We thought we were dead. Not today, replied. The battle raged for hours. The fleet pushed toward the gate, but the swarm kept pushing back. Ships fell on both sides. The space around became a graveyard. On the Iron Judgment received terrible news. Supreme Warrior, she reported to. The human medical transport with coal has been hit. They are drifting toward the gate. Felt something cold grip his heart. Can they escape? Their engines are damaged, and the swarm is surrounding them. Looked at the tactical display. The transport was a tiny dot amid a sea of enemies. Any ship that went to help would be destroyed. But he did not hesitate. Cover me, ordered. He left the bridge and headed for the fighter bay. Supreme Warrior called after him, you cannot go alone. Watch me. Fighter launched into the chaos. He flew faster than he had ever flown before. Swarm creatures tried to stop him. He destroyed them without slowing down. His mind was focused on one thing, one person. He reached the medical transport in minutes. It was badly damaged. Holes covered its hull. The swarm was trying to break inside. Landed on the hull and jumped out. His 4 arms carried plasma blades in each hand. He carved through the swarm like they were made of paper. He shouted, "Are you alive?" A voice came from inside the ship, weak but steady. "Still here, but not for long. We have wounded who can't move." "Hold on, I am coming." Cut his way into the ship. Inside, he found and his team surrounded by wounded warriors. They had barricaded themselves in the medical bay. The humans were armed with emergency pistols, defending the patients. Looked up when entered. His face was bloody, his arm was burned, but he was still standing. "Took you long enough," said. Despite everything, smiled. "You are injured." "It's not bad, the patients are worse. We need to get them out." "I know, a rescue ship is coming, but we must hold until then." The swarm attacked again, fought them at the door while protected the wounded. They worked together without speaking, each knowing what the other would do. Minutes passed like hours. The rescue ship finally arrived, a massive cruiser that scattered the swarm with its weapons. Shuttles came down to evacuate the transport. Carried onto the shuttle himself, the human had collapsed from his injuries. He was unconscious but alive. "You did well, little doctor," said quietly. "You did very well." The battle lasted another 3 days. In the end, the fleet destroyed the gate. The void swarm was broken. The galaxy was saved. But the cost was terrible. Thousands of ships destroyed. Millions of lives lost. Among the dead were 3 of his medical team, humans who had given their lives to save others. When it was over, returned to the Iron Judgment. Was in the medical bay, recovering from his wounds. He was awake now, staring at the ceiling. Your team members said, "I am sorry." "They knew the risks," replied. His voice was hollow. "They chose to come anyway. They were brave. They were good people, the best I've ever known." Sat beside the medical bed. He looked at the human who had become so important to him. "When we return to the core world," said, "there will be a ceremony to honor the fallen. I know. I want you to stand beside me." Looked at him. "Why?" "Because you have earned it, because your people have earned it, and because there is something I must do, something that has never been done before." The ceremony took place on It was a planet of gray mountains and red skis, as hard and beautiful as the warriors who lived there. The entire galaxy watched through broadcast networks. Billions of beings across thousands of worlds waited to hear the Supreme Warrior speak. The Great Hall of the was filled with representatives from every species. The Galactic Council sat in the front rows. Behind them stood the survivors of the Battle of warriors in ceremonial armor. Human doctors still wearing their medical whites. Soldiers from a dozen different races. Stood near the front, his arm still in a sling from his injuries. He felt out of place among all these warriors. He was just a doctor. He had not killed enemies or led armies, but had insisted that he be there. The Supreme Warrior himself stood on the raised platform at the center of the hall. His red eyes swept across the crowd. When he spoke, his voice carried to every corner. "We gather today to honor those who fell at," began. "Warriors from every species gave their lives so that the galaxy might survive. Their names will be remembered. Their sacrifice will not be forgotten." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "But I did not ask you here only to mourn the dead. I am here to speak about the living, about those who have changed my understanding of strength, about one species in particular." The crowd stirred. Something unusual was happening. "For centuries," continued, "they have looked down on humans. We called them weak. We called them soft. We believed they had no place among the great species of the galaxy." Felt the eyes of the room turn toward him. He stood still, uncertain. "I believed these things myself," admitted. "When I first learned that humans would join my fleet, I was angry. I thought they would be a burden, a weakness." He looked directly at Now. "I was wrong." The hall went silent. The Supreme Warrior had never said those words before, not in 300 years of battle. "I watched a human doctor run into the middle of a battlefield to save warriors. He had no armor, no weapons, but he did not hesitate. He did not show fear. He saved lives that day, lives that would have been lost without him." Stepped down from the platform. The crowd parted before him as he walked toward. "I watched human medical ships fly into the heart of the battle. They knew they might die. They went anyway. 3 of them did die, giving their lives so that our wounded could survive." He stopped in front of. The human looked up at the massive warrior. "Cole," said, "you have shown more courage than warriors twice your size. You have saved hundreds of my people. You have fought beside me through the darkest days of this war." Did not know what to say. He simply stood there waiting. "Among the," continued, "there is an ancient tradition. When a warrior proves himself beyond all doubt, when he earns the deepest respect of a brother, there is a ritual, a bond. It has not been performed for an outsider in over 1,000 years." The crowd gasped. The in the hall began to murmur. Some looked shocked, others looked moved. "Today," said, "I invoke the right of kin." He drew a small blade from his belt. It was made of black metal, ancient and sacred. He cut his own palm, letting red blood flow. "Cole," said, "I name you my brother, my bloodkin, my family. From this day forward you are in spirit if not in body. Your enemies are my enemies. Your honor is my honor. Your life is as valuable as my own." He held out his bleeding hand. Stared at it. He understood what this meant. The Supreme Warrior, the most respected figure in the galaxy, was declaring a human his equal, his brother. Slowly took his hand. Their blood mixed together. "I accept," said quietly, "brother." The hall erupted. Warriors raised their fists in salute. Other species looked on in amazement. The human delegation wept openly. Turned to face the crowd, still holding his hand. "Let this be known across the galaxy," he declared. "Humans are not weak, they are not lesser. They have proven themselves in the only way that matters, through courage, through sacrifice, through honor." He looked at the council members in the front row. "Any species that insults humanity insults me. Any species that threatens humanity threatens the. From this day forward, humans will be treated as equals, or they will answer to me." The room fell silent. The implications were enormous. The Supreme Warrior had just placed humanity under the protection of the most powerful military force in the galaxy. No one would dare challenge them now. In the back of the room, Director stood with tears running down her face. 50 years of struggle, of being looked down upon, of fighting for respect. It was over. A single act of brotherhood had changed everything. The ceremony ended, but the effects had just begun. Within days, the Galactic Council formally recognized humanity as a Class 1 species, equal to anyone. Trade deals followed. military alliances, cultural exchanges. Humans who had been confined to the edges of galactic society suddenly found themselves welcomed everywhere. The galaxy had finally yielded. But the most important change was simpler than politics or treaties. 1 week after the ceremony, he stood on the observation deck of the Iron Judgment, stood beside him as he often did now. They watched the stars together. "Everything is different," said. "I'm not sure I'm ready for it." "You will adapt," replied. "Humans are good at that. People keep calling me a hero, but I was just doing my job." Made a sound that might have been a laugh. That is what every hero says. They do not see themselves as special. They simply do what they believe is right. "Is that what you think, that I'm a hero?" Looked down at his human brother. "I think you are the bravest person I have ever met, and I have met many." Was quiet for a moment. "What happens now?" "Now, we keep doing what we have always done. We protect those who need protecting. We save those who need saving. We fight when fighting is necessary. Together. Together always, that is what kin means." Smiled. It was small and tired but genuine. "I never thought I'd have a brother. The universe is stranger than I imagined." "The universe is full of surprises," agreed. "That is what makes it worth exploring." They stood there for a long time, watching the stars wheel past. Two beings from different worlds, bound by blood and honor. Behind them, the galaxy was changing. Old prejudices were dying. New understanding was being born. Humanity had spent 50 years trying to earn the galaxy's respect. They had worked and served and endured insults. They had been called weak, called soft, called unworthy. And then one human ran into a battlefield to save alien lives, and everything changed. Because strength was never about size or power. It was about courage, about sacrifice, about standing up for what was right, even when it was dangerous. Cole had shown the galaxy what humans were really made of. And when the Supreme Warrior embraced him as kin, the galaxy finally yielded. Not because they feared but because they finally understood. Humans were not weak. They were just getting started. In the years that followed, Cole became a legend. Schools across the galaxy taught his story. Young warriors of every species learned about the human doctor who had earned us respect. He became a symbol of everything humanity could be. But never thought of himself that way. He remained a doctor. He stayed on the Iron Judgment, healing the wounded and treating the sick. When went to battle, went with him. When peace came, they sat together and watched the stars. They were brothers after all, and that was what mattered most. The galaxy had changed. Humans walked tall among the stars now. They were diplomats and warriors, scientists and artists. They led missions and commanded fleets, but they never forgot where they came from. They never forgot the lesson of 7 and. Strength was not about force. It was about heart. It was about showing up when others ran away. It was about caring for others, even when those others had looked down on you. Humanity had always had that strength. They just needed someone to see it. And when the Supreme Warrior finally did, everything changed. The galaxy yielded, and humanity rose.